What's up, Cerebral football fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Channel. And as you can tell from the title of today's video or today's live stream, I want to talk about Quinyon Mitchell. And in particular, I want to really talk about this remade Philadelphia Eagles secondary. A lot of changes. We got some familiar faces coming back that probably were a pretty big loss from us from the season prior. We got some young guys stepping up. We got some young guys that are going to take on a pivotal role here in Philadelphia. But I do think that one of the things we heard within the past 48 to 72 hours, which was kind of really big news, was a clarification from Vic Fangio. I told you guys I've been hearing two separate things. One thing I was hearing is that Quinyon was going to play outside, and then on nickel downs where they're going to bring in the nickel back, he was going to bounce him inside as the nickel corner, and then basically they would bring Isaiah Rodgers outside. And then I heard, well, no, I've heard other people say it the other way, that basically Isaiah Rodgers is a starter, and then Quinyon Mitchell is going to play the nickel and the nickel base, and they're going to play, still going to play a lot because we're going to be primarily a nickel or dime. Well, we got clarification there, guys. I mean, it seems like Vic Fangio, to me, outright stated Quinyon's going to be on the field. Quinyon's going to be on the field for as long as he can be on the field. Minus an injury, this guy's playing, and this guy's going to play a lot. You spent a first-round pick. We felt really good when that pick came down the line. We knew there was a huge run on offensive players in this 2024 NFL draft, and it really slid the defensive board, and I think we got really fortunate. I think we got kind of lucky being where we were picking, that we didn't need to move forward to go get one of those targets, and Quinyon fell into your laps, and it does seem like, for whatever sake you want to look at this as, guys, they're going to play them. They're going to get out there and play them, and I do think that we would have saw a bigger role built in as well for Cooper. I think Cooper DeJean would have had a more of a defined role had he been healthy throughout camp. I think it's not really an ability. It's not really not understanding the system per se. I think it's more so you miss so much time there. There's, you got to learn everything first. And then on top of learning everything, there's a chemistry to playing in the secondary, right? There is something to making the calls, everybody being on the same page within the calls, within the structure of the coverage. So I do think as time goes on, I do think you're going to see Cooper DeJean get in and play some. But this is interesting because I know one of the big critiques I was getting from mostly Miami fans is that Vic doesn't play younger guys. I got to be honest. It looks like to me, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean looks like he's going to get involved. I would not be shocked if we see some early deactivations from Hunt, sure. But I do think Jalen Hunt by the end of the season is going to be one of these dudes that's in a rotation. I do think he could easily elevate himself into that fourth or fifth role in terms of that edge rush role. So by the end of the year, I wouldn't be shocked if all three of our first or second and our third round pick, if all three of those guys are not actually taking quite a bit of snaps. All three of those picks were spent on the defensive side of the ball. All three of those, two of those picks, one was traded forward, one kept trading backwards. One we stayed put in, ironically, the way that how we maneuvered the board. To me, it looks like the young guys are going to get some playing time here in Philadelphia. And that doesn't even count the fact that you look at the interior defensive line. We talked about that. I think was it last week, guys? We talked about the interior defensive line, wasn't it? We talked about the interior defensive line and the fact that when you look at, Jalen Carter's probably going to be playing that Fletch, type role where he's going to be playing probably 700 some plus snaps in the season. You look at Jordan Davis. We know Jordan Davis is probably going to see a tick upward in his utilization. I still think he's going to be part of a rotation. So I don't anticipate his utilization to be where Jalen Carter's will be. But nonetheless, we've heard a lot of positive things said about his leadership. The fact that you got a third-year guy in Jordan Davis, you got a second-year guy in Jalen Carter, you got a fourth-year guy in Milton Williams, right? You got a second-year guy in Moro Jama, and we got a young man we just traded for on top of all that, and Thomas Booker, who just came off, one of these guys that we kind of developed off of our practice squad from the season prior. So, I mean, you could see, Nakobe Dean going to be, a part of this at some point. I don't know if he's going to start, but I do know that he's probably going to be part of a rotation. Going back and look at Miami, even before Van Ginkel was being overhung as an edge in Miami's system last year, he was playing some off-ball linebacker. He was kind of the third off-ball linebacker in their system. And he would come in and play a little bit within their third down structure defense prior to, becoming an edge player for them because of injuries. So I expect to see a lot of these young guys. I think a lot of these young guys, they're going to play. I mean, even Reed Blankenship, this is only Reed's third year in the league. That was an undrafted free agent who fought his butt off, did such a great job to make that team back in 22, took over a starting role in 23. We saw some of the limitations to his game, of course. I still think Reed is a really good player, but I don't think he's exceptional. I just think he's a solid player that you could be dependent upon. Reed's a young dude. To me, I don't see a lot of fear here in terms of playing young guys. You look at our edge rushers outside of Josh Sweat. Of course, Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham are, they're older guys. They've been in the league for a little while. But I mean, even if you look at Huff, who was our big, acquisition during the offseason, not an overly experienced or an older player per se. He was a younger guy. That's part of the reason why we gave him the money, because, he had a couple of years, he was a year or so younger than when we signed Hassan, to be quite honest, to his original deal here in Philadelphia. So he's a younger guy, right? He's got 1 year of like real experience as kind of a rotational edge rusher with tremendous production, right? You got Nolan Smith, who we're all kind of like, we'll see what happens here, right? Patrick Johnson, I believe, is on the last year of his rookie deal. Patrick Johnson seems to me as if he's going to have a role here in terms of like this Philadelphia Eagles team. You got Cam Jurgens. Well, not that defensively it doesn't really matter. It's got nothing, or offensively has nothing to do with, with Vic Fangio. But I mean, to me, if you look across the board, guys, I mean, they're going to play some young guys, right? I mean, you can say like, well, they held on guys like Avonte Maddox. They tried to keep, a guy like James Bradbury, just didn't work out. But yeah, they put Tristan McCullum on the roster. He's going to play a role, right? I believe Kelly Ringo. I think Kelly Ringo's the next guy up on the outside if something happens. I don't know what they'll do inside. That's an interesting question. If you have to start, like Isaiah Rodgers, if Isaiah Rodgers is injured, right now you got to play Quinyon primarily just on the outside. You can't bounce him inside because of that injury. It is interesting. Do you still bounce Quinyon in on third downs or in nickel situations? Are you going to bounce him inside and then play Kelly Ringo on the outside, or are they going to bring Coop? Is Cooper going to be the inside guy? Are they going to bring Avonte from the safety down to play? That's an interesting one, guys. That's the one I really don't know. That's like, we need tape. Like, we need tape to see how they're going to handle some of these situations. Like, without the tape, it's just an educated guess. And there's not a whole lot I can really know, without seeing the tape there. But I do get this feeling that compared to seasons, prior, there seems to be like a little bit more of like, hey, when we draft these guys and we bring these dudes in, yeah, like we got to play them. Like we got to play these guys. We got to get these guys, involved in terms of what we're doing here. We're spending too much time waiting on development. It's hard to develop without actual like field work. It's just is, guys. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible. Of course, you got guys like, Pat Mahomes sat behind his entire rookie year, came out his second year in the league and lit it on fire. Of course, if you have incredible amounts of talent, like to me, you could have sat Jalen Carter all last year. The minute that man touched the field this year, I mean, he was going to be a dog. I mean, there's an inherent athletic ability, of course, guys. With that said, you guys get what I'm saying. Like, there is still a learning curve. No matter how good you are, there's a learning curve in this league. Everybody in this league is good. I mean, even the dudes that we get frustrated with sometimes and we use stupid language, like we say they suck or something. In the reality, that dude's one of the best guys in the entire world at doing this job. Like, he's pretty dang good, right? My guy Philly Fresh used to call, Ronald Darby, Burt Toast Darby. Even Burt Toast Darby, still one of the best dudes at doing this job. You know what I mean? Like, it is kind of one of those things, but that's how good this league is. Everybody in this league is good. I mean, they're all good players. It's just that you got some that are exceptional. You got the Jalen Carters. It's going to be exceptional. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely think this is going to be Jalen Carter's year. I think we're going to see a monster season out of Jalen Carter. With that said, guys, I am curious what they do from the base structure here in terms of how they want to hang the defense, because Vic has kind of resorted a little bit, like he's kind of going away a little bit from some of the quarter stuff. I'm not saying that what they do pre-snap. Pre-snap is pre-snap. I'm talking about post-snap, what they do. Pre-snap, he still might give you a lot of looks where he's in too high safety, and then post-snap, you get the rotation from the defense. But we know that we heard his final season in Denver into what he did in Miami last year. Vic was kind of revolving into this Rip Liz type system, very reminiscent a little bit of Zimmer, what we saw with Minnesota with Zimmer before he got canned there. But they were doing Rip Liz there to where they would move, strong side rotation is cover 3 guys, weak side rotation is cover 9 in terms of coming down into the box. That's basically going to be, playing thirds on the back end. You probably get some cover 6 mixed in, I would imagine, with that as well. Cover 3, cover 6, cover 9. that brings more bodies down in the underneath zone area to cover, which I do think kind of helps you, theoretically. We got to see it on the field, guys. Ain't nothing crap until it's on the field, right? But theoretically, that gives you more people down low to stop some of those quick game stuff. Some of the things that drove us crazy for a couple of years. You guys remember the 2021 season with Jonathan Gannon, where they were, we literally had the Chargers and Justin Herbert out there playing catch on the sideline on us because we were backed off so much. We had so few people in the underneath zone area actually covering. I do think that that's partially like one of Vic's kind of adjustments here is to play some of that like kind of cover 3, cover 9, where they rip lives, where they're going to rock one of the safeties down. So they give you kind of a quarters look or a too high safety look early, and then they rotate down. Then it's going to be interesting as the season goes on. I do want to like take some time as the season goes on to try to track it between like how often they're playing cover 2 versus like quarters versus like 3 and 6 and 9, and just kind of get a feel for like the percentages. Cause I do think that's going to be part of the conversation with Vic is like, like what are his percentages worked itself out here with Philadelphia and the talent we have here. And I also, even though I'm naming a lot of zone coverages, I do think that you're going to see some situations with Vic where he's going to play man, just because I think he feels comfortable with the bodies he has out there to play man coverage. I think that's part of the, the deal here is that, to give Jonathan Gannon some credit, in the 22 season, Gannon did start playing a lot more man coverage than he did in 21. Like we were kind of moving towards the middle of the pack inside of the league, as opposed to like in 21 when we were at the very bottom of the pack, just because they just really didn't trust Steven Nelson in man coverage out there on the boundary. I do think that they would trust an Isaiah Rodgers, a Kaylee Ringo, a Quinyon Mitchell, a Darius Slay, a Cooper DeJean. I think they trust those dudes if they have to man up a little bit more than 21 was like a really extreme example of it. 23, I don't think we were like ridiculous. Let me take a look real quick, guys, in terms of the PFF numbers. I don't think we were like, I don't think we were one of the tops in the league or anything like that, but I also don't think like we were like way down at the bottom either. I think we were still kind of maintaining that, that area to where we were in the middle. So I'm going to go to coverage scheme on the cornerbacks. And I'm going to look at man percentages, and that'll give us an idea of like, where Slay and those guys rank. Gives you an idea. I mean, it's kind of tough because like even when you run a quarters concept, guys, like quarters is technically a zone coverage, but if you're running match principles, the match, carry, and deliver, you're building in man concepts into a zone scheme. So like there are these like things like that kind of like it makes it a little difficult to evaluate. Sometimes I do wonder, how much of the stuff they're getting accurate, how much they really understand the coverages. If I'm being honest, I got to filter this minimal coverage. So let's take a look. Yeah, so Eli Ricks played 233 coverage snaps on the season last year. He had the third highest man percentage at 44.6, but he was also playing in the nickel where you're going to play a lot of man, which also kind of speaks to Quinyon Mitchell, right? Bouncing him inside on those third downs and stuff like that. Like, yeah, like you want that dude to play man, right? I mean, that's a guy who has a certain athletic profile that it makes sense for him to play a lot of man. Josh Jobe, 179 snaps on the season, 31.8%. 32nd overall in the league, man coverage. Bradbury, 697 snaps, 30.6, over 30% of his snaps, almost 31% out of man. It's pretty high. And then Slay was 42nd overall, 30.1, 574 total snaps and man coverage. So even underneath the Sai, to be fair, we played a lot more man coverage than I think people realize. Some of you do realize it because you remember Tyreek Hill beating the crap out of us in a game. I remember it clearly. With that said, like, I do think you're going to see some balancing here with Vic, right? I mean, I don't think it's a secret that a certain percentage, right? Like the category we just read with Sean Desai, that was more of the upper third of the league in terms of percentages. Like we were actually in the upper third of the league in man coverage last year. I don't know if we'll be that high with Vic. We'll see. I'm gonna leave some things to be determined by like, the actual tape and just like what we get off the first quarter of the season, the first 4 games, give us a better idea of what's happening. With that said, you can see that Vic immediately went out there to go approach athletes. You guys get what I'm saying? Like he immediately attacked it by going and getting the best athletes he could possibly get. The Cooper DeJeans. They went out there and they got the Quinyon Mitchell, and then turn it around differently. Even prior to that, even the season prior when they had one of Vic's closest disciples, which Sean Desai was one of his closest disciples. To be fair, even Desai, they went out there got Isaiah Rodgers, who's a heck of an athlete. We know Slay's a good athlete. Even 30-some years old, Slay's still a really good athlete, which speaks to that man's conditioning, to be quite honest. We could see, like, athletically speaking, this team is kind of built to play a little bit more man coverage than I think a lot of people realize. Like, I would not be shocked if we don't maintain that 31% to like 28% on the low end from our corners, basically. I mean, look, you can see they went heavy at corner. I mean, if we go back and we look at the Eagles roster and we take a look at just how many corners they hung on this roster, like they hung a ton, guys. I mean, we kept a ton of corners on this roster because number one, we didn't want them to be claimed, but Cooper DeJean, from Cooper DeJean, we got, let me scroll down, guys. I'm sorry. Avonte Maddox, from Avonte Maddox, you got Quinyon Mitchell. From Quinyon Mitchell, you got Eli Ricks, Kaylee Ringo, Isaiah Rogers. We're already up to 6. Darius Slay makes 7. Like, I mean, we won heavy, 7 deep at corner. And then, we still got guys on reserve that we didn't give up. James Bradbury's still on injured reserve. He's probably done for this. We'll see. I mean, he may be done for the season, but I mean, technically he could return within 6 to 8 weeks. We'll see if they would actually bring him back and activate him. He's not really a corner though. But Tyler Hall was IR'd, so they want to keep track of him and maybe keep him to get a look at him next season in 25 potentially. I'm trying to see if he hung anybody with this deep. I don't know if he would have hung anybody on the practice squad because no, JT Woods. Well, JT Woods played a lot of safety, didn't he, guys? Didn't JT Woods play some safety? Let me take a look at JT Woods' snap count, guys. I remember him from the draft. I know he's a taller, fast guy. I can't remember if he was playing a lot more safety. 3rd round, so not the raw. 22 draft. Let me just look him up on PFF real quick, guys, and just see his snap counts because that'll probably give us a better idea. But I mean, you keep 7 corners on your active 53. We look at the percentages they ran last year, just, based upon what they were doing with, Sean Desai at the helm. I mean, to me, like it's pretty obvious. Yeah, he's going to play. It looks like he's going to play some safety, guys. If I'm looking at my snaps by position, I don't know if he really got involved in anything more than special teams. But let me take a look. He plays some slot cornerback, actually. I played a little slot cornerback. They've used him as a box kind of player. So yeah, it looks like some free safety, some slot corner, some box. He's got some versatility. He's like 6'2", over 190 pounds. He's an interesting one. I mean, you could technically look at him and say, like, I mean, you could factor into just kind of like Avonte Maddox. He's kind of like a couple of guys they've hung around on this roster to where there's some versatility where he can play, over the top of your defense. He can play on the outside if you really need him to, or he can play in a slot. Maybe. But, I mean, I don't know how they see him. They might see him more as a developmental guy at safety. So we'll have to see kind of like what they do there in terms of using JT Woods. But it's going to be interesting, guys. This is going to be a really, really interesting season. This is going to be interesting to see how they play, defensively. This is going to be really interesting to see how they play the secondary. I'm hoping that just by having a veteran coach in Vic Fangio, the communication is going to get cleared up. Because that's what burnt us more than anything last year. Like, yeah, James Bradbury losing a step certainly burnt us. But in addition to James Bradbury, losing a step, these guys not being able to communicate. That's the thing about quarters coverage. Everyone keeps saying, like, Steve, why don't you like the Fangio system? I love Vic Fangio. I just think the Fangio system is really difficult to teach the players, and it requires a lot of thought, requires a lot of thinking. It's not reaction based. It's not necessarily always just matched up on your athleticism. Like, you got to be able to communicate and talk, right? Guys can't be out there second guessing each other. Guys got to have their ears open and know when someone just passed off a coverage to them, right? There's different things that can happen. If you're playing outside and you got a fast 3 coming at you and you're passing off the number 1 guy, you're saying, hey, if he goes underneath, he's yours. Like, that communication has to be there, right? The communication between the safety and the nickel, that has to be there, right? Especially when you're dealing with the seam. There's a lot of things. There are passes, you can pass off coverage, not just from fast 3s, but also the running backs. There are calls to pass off the running backs, things like that. That's it's just a lot of communication inside the Fangio system, inside of his coverages, that sometimes can make things a little difficult. But nonetheless, I'm not, Fangio is a really great coach. I think they did a really good job of getting guys who I thought were very experienced playing in zone coverages. And look, it's going to be interesting to see how the young guys, do, because I thought that they had a lot of experience coming in, playing in these systems. They had to learn the calls. They seem to have gotten a lot of reps, a lot of times in practice, Quinyon and Kaylee Ringo and those guys that could potentially play roles on this team. it's going to be exciting, guys. It's going to be an exciting way to like kind of hash everything out in terms of what we see from our secondary. You know, whether or not we think the secondary can, improve upon, like, can it improve us from last year? Because like we were garbage last year in terms of coverage. We just were. We were not very good in coverage. We saw them really attack the nickel corner spot. We saw them really attack, the outside corner spot. There's definitely a new leaf being turned over. We just got to hope it's successful. And it's, till we have film, it's a guessing game, guys. It's a guessing game until there's film to judge the players inside of Fangio's scheme in the system. I feel good about it, but we'll see, because I think one thing that could be argued, and it's a little bit more nuanced, is that Fangio is maybe reverting and changing his style a little bit to where he's a little bit more of a Belichick style, to where the back end supplements the front end, right? His coverages help produce sacks. That was like Belichick's thing. He didn't need world-class, rushers, because if his coverages, if he could confuse quarterbacks and his guys could cover well enough, he could create pressure, essentially. I wonder if Fangio's kind of molding himself into that a little bit. That's theory-based, guys. I have nothing to support that data yet. I got to see, we need a quarter of the season to even remotely make a claim like that. But that is kind of ticking around in my mind a little bit about him, that we might be seeing the changing of the guard there in terms of that particular situation. Like, hey, Fangio might be doing a little differently now. He might be changing his philosophy just a little bit. This might be kind of going on the radar with people. I mean, people have kind of brushed the topic a little bit, but no one's really like outright declared it yet. All right, guys, let's get into some comments, man. Let's talk for a little bit. Joe, what's good, buddy? He says, good morning, Steve. In the chat, please remember to hit that like button. Hey, man, I appreciate y'all. Thank you. Gregory, what's up, buddy? Good morning. What's up, man? Dante, how you doing, buddy? Trill Will, what's up, man? How y'all doing today? KSF said, I honestly think Hunt will beat out Nolan Smith by the end of the season. I mean, possibly. I don't want to give up on Nolan yet. I'm concerned with what I saw, KSF, just like everybody else is, but I also don't want to put too much emphasis on the preseason. But yeah, I mean, if we're a quarter of the way in the season, we're 4 games deep, and now we're getting ready to get into that bye week, and we still are really questioning Nolan Smith's, utility and use on the team. Yeah, then we probably got a situation. We probably have a definite situation at that point. Brian, what's good, buddy? Says, so it looks like Nakobe Dean beat out Devin White. Did he beat him out, or is he injured? I heard some rumblings that he might be injured. What's up, Dean? How you doing, bro? Devin White is out, so Dean is starting. Yeah, I didn't know he was out, but I did hear he got injured. I didn't know they declared him out, though. Apparently, Dean was starting anyway. Huh. Interesting. So, yeah, according to Jeff McClain, but with these reporters, who knows? I don't know. Like, look, I know they love Zach Bond, and I think Zach Bond played better than a lot of people realize. I still think our best combination on the field is normally going to be Nakobe Dean and Devin White, to be quite honest. I think Devin White gives you something in terms of like being able to cover. But if he's injured, he's injured, and there's not much you can do about that. Joe said, yeah, the last guy on the practice squad on the worst team is still a great athlete. Yeah, it's crazy to think that. Like, Joe, I've been there, man. I tried to walk on to a D1 program. I've told some guys I know that play college ball this, and it's hilarious. It's funny when you try to walk on, especially like, I was a little bit older when I tried to do it, and, I just come out of the service and everything, and I was like, yo, this is like, no way, man. I'm not putting myself through this. This is insane to have to do this. Like, I do have a lot of respect for these guys. Like, if they're making it in the league, these are really good players. They're really, really good players if they're making it in the league. Aishan said, Dean and Trot, I hope start. I'll let Bond start to edge early snaps, huff for 3rd and long. I'm curious if Zach Baum won't eventually get some play, Aishan, in terms of like being an overhang, an edge, an on-ball linebacker. Like he did it at Wisconsin. I mean, the guy has the body frame for it. I think he's a little sudden. I do think he can do that. I think he's a guy that you could play off and on ball. Like I think he can give you that kind of versatility. How will Huff develop if we just sit him like the Jets did? Yeah, it's tough, and he's one of those young guys I think is going to get a tremendous uptick in playing time. Like Antonio, I wouldn't be shocked if he's not another guy that's going to be in that 700 range in terms of total snaps. 700 plus, I should say. It will be Dean and Bond. Trot needs some time. Trot, gap and run fits weren't that great in the preseason. I doubt he will play much this year, especially with Burks on the 53 now. Yeah, they got some interesting decisions easy in terms of special teams. That's going to be a difficult one, right? Because you can only keep 46 guys active, and you got your 2 call-ups from the practice squad. Then you got a 49th guy, your third quarterback, where you can use an activation there. So you can technically keep 49 up to 49 guys on game day, but only 47 can technically come, with the call up from the quarterback. Only 47 can technically be from the active roster. So I mean, that does limit you. At least being able to use the quarterback in that way gives you an extra, roster space to use during, activations for game day. Obviously, if you got guys that are, week 1, you don't normally have this problem, but as the season goes on, you'll have a few guys that'll miss a game or two, and that'll make those decisions a little easier. But they do got some for special teams purposes. There are some decisions to be made. Would you start Bond over Huff at edge? Is crazy, in my opinion. Huff has a 10 sack season. What has Bond done? I don't know. I don't know if I would start per se, Antonio. I mean, everything's in a rotation. If the D line can create pressure, our D backs will do just fine. The trenches are where it is won. Vic Fangio will get the D line playing very well, even if it takes a couple of games. Bond being bigger, I feel, could set the edge on early downs and fill the gap for rushing plays better than Huff. He did that in New Orleans. I agree. Hang on, guys. Gate, do you think Ojamo could beat out Davis and Milton on long third downs? Oh, that's tough, easy. Yes, potentially. I don't think that's a guarantee per se, but I do think that Ajamo is a really good run defender, and I think there's some ability there. I do think he could take. I don't know if he could beat them out per se, but can he take snaps away in a rotation? Probably, probably. I mean, Milton's got a lot of potential. He's very sudden. He's very quick. Hasn't really lived up to the pass rush production we were hoping. Hoping Milton gets maybe another 100 snaps or so this season. I think that would help. Obviously, like replacing Fletcher's snaps, that's going to be part of the equation here. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough to factor that in. There's definitely like a formula here for snap counts. He's talking about third and long, Trowell. Good morning, brother. 2 days left. Does BVS get some snaps Friday? I don't know. That's a great question, John. I mean, it probably depends upon the depth they're going to have at linebacker. It also depends upon how they're stacking these guys. So, I mean, if you're already if Devin White is truly being ruled out, and you're already down Devin White, then it becomes like kind of a concept of how comfortable they are with the rotation here. With you got Nakobe Dean, you got Bond, you got Zach Bond. Then it's like, is it Oren Burks? Is it Ben Van Sumeren? Is it Trot? How do they have them stacked? I doubt it would be Trot next up. So, I mean, it's really between BVS and pretty much like how they see Oren Burks in terms of where they think who's ahead. I got to be honest, I thought preseason, but I thought BVS looked like he was more prepared to play. I think they both did a good job, and I thought they were both worthy of a roster spot. But Ben Van Sumen has a certain athleticism that most dudes don't have. He's a guy I would love to see play a little bit more because when he got his opportunity late last year, I thought he really thrived. Jama, in my opinion, could beat out JD if JD doesn't stay in shape throughout the entire season, but not Milton. JT Woods at safety. If Jordan Davis doesn't improve his pad level and technique, he won't play third downs. We'll see very soon. Devin White is out. Is that something that just broke TL? Am I the only one who loves CJ Gardner-Johnson? He always talks like no one likes him. Is it the reporters' fault? I don't know. I don't know the nature of the relationship he has with the reporters. I mean, some of these guys secretly they know each other and they hang out. Brandon Graham has a really good rapport with a lot of these guys. A lot of the reporters, a lot of the beat writers. I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people like CJ Gardner-Johnson. I don't think you're laying one on that boat. I don't know what the relationship is with the reporters, though, Jay, to be honest. Not a side of things I normally get to see. I don't think he enjoys the questions, though. I don't think he's one of these guys that likes being questioned, to be quite honest. JT Woods is a big safety with speed, but his instincts, etc., need some development. 4.3 speed and 6'2". He's a big dude. Yeah, they're trying to bank out on the athleticism. Devin White is out. Wow, they said there were rumors that how we might trade Devin White. What is going on? I like and feel Fangio will schematically have our defensive players in the best position to produce, but players got to know their keys and gel, like you're saying. Yeah, that's the hard thing. Is like there is like a rhythm that comes to playing together, and it's hard to predict in week one. I think it's the reason why like sometimes week one's really unpredictable and like it's not the greatest judge of where teams are going to be by the midpoint of the season. Um, Even if we come out here and thump Green Bay, I'm not going to think any less of Green Bay's roster, nor am I going to think any more of Philly's roster. All I'm going to say is like that was an important win, right? We went down to Brazil. We played a playoff team. We played a team that's probably going to be the playoffs again, and we won. But I don't, I'm not going to hold week one in like super high regard. I just think it's fool's gold sometimes. With that said, when we get to the tough row and we're getting in, late October into that November stretch, if we go on like a run there to we're winning 5-6 games, then I think like yeah, this team's it's built, it's ready to go. Milton had similar pressure numbers to Davis, both in that 5 to 6% range. Carter had 17 and 22% pressure on passing downs. I think Milton's short arms make it tough for him. Ajamo has very long arms. Yeah, he does, like 34-inch arm reach. Yeah, he's a longer player. Yes, Devin got an ankle injury. Huh. I know that, guys. I appreciate the update. 8 no way. Dean beat out White. Huh? I don't know, man. If I don't know that this suggests that he beat him out, Wealthy mine. I mean, I think got to be a little careful with that. That's not what not what I'm saying. But I will say, like, if later on, if Vic Fangio says somebody won the job, I trust Fangio. Fangio's going off of merit. He's not. I don't think Fangio's messing around with that kind of thing. White struggled with block shedding. Yeah, he got depleted in that Baltimore game. He did. Dean plays faster with a very low pad level, which makes him hard to block in the run game. One thing they did bring up though, EEZ, and I don't know how much of an impact it has because I've never called defensive plays. It's not my MO. I mean, I've called it as like coordinator before, but I've never called it like as a green dot. Is what I'm saying as a player. Um, I did hear that some guys, because Dean's got that, he got that, that Mississippi lingo. You know what I mean? He's got that Southern lingo that, that kind of messes some guys up a little bit. And that's why they were like Devin White. They were kind of talking that up. Sometimes I do think they're just making up storylines, to be honest. So I don't know if there's one of those things where they're just, they're filling in the void, the summer months, but there's just not that much to talk about. I don't know how much to put in stock into that, but I did remember that. And that's kind of an interesting one is like the whole green dot of play calling. You know, I know that they were rotating these two guys and getting them work for that purpose, but whew, yeah. I mean, Dean could definitely beat out Devin White. We hardly got to see them play at all. Yeah, it's true. We really didn't. Great point, Eddie Easy. I didn't realize that Ajama had longer arms than Milton. Yeah. Yeah. Milton's like really, really short arms for a D lineman. I want to say Milton's like around 31, 32 inches in the arm reach. He's got very short arms for guys. So let me see. Interior D line, 31.5-inch arm reach for Milton Williams. So Moro Jama's got 34.5-inch arm reach. Remember, we did a video where we were talking about the D line eye shot, and I broke it down by the averages. So if you take all our guys and you divide them up, the average would be roughly 6'3" and like 5/8, somewhere around 303 pounds, a 33.5-inch arm reach, and an 81.2-inch wingspan. So like that's definitely a change from previous years. Like we're getting players with longer reach. We're getting guys that are a little bit more stout. We can see that kind of setting itself in a little bit. With that said, then we talked about like the guys who skew this data. So we talked about two guys in particular skewing the data. Number one is Jordan Davis. So when you're weighing in at 303 pounds, but there's like three guys hovering around that 290, 300-pound range, obviously, Big JD is skewing that weight a little bit. You know what I mean? And that's even with them only saying he's 336 pounds. I think JD might be a little bigger than that. And then we talked about Milton Williams skewing it, 6'3", 290, 31.5-inch arm reach. So, I mean, even when it says 33.5 outside of Milton Williams, all these guys have pretty much have 33.5-inch arm reach or greater. I mean, Thomas Booker, I think, is 33.25 to be fully accurate here in the details. I think if they bring Tui back, I don't know if Tui Pelotu caught him with another team or not, but if they brought Tui back, he has 33-inch arms. But everybody else is pretty much 33.5 or longer in the arm reach. So, I mean, they visibly, like, there's a visible difference here. Carlton said, I like to listen. I'm learning. Like, hey, I appreciate that, man. Thank you, guys. Brian said, Ian Rappaport reported that there were rumors that Howie made Devin White available for trade. Interesting. I don't know. We never really know what goes on in the front offices. We also don't. Sometimes I think it can be confused that is it Howie making him available, or did the teams call and he started listening to the offers? Like, I don't know. But I mean, even if he's listening to the offers, it tells you that they were willing. If the right offer came across, they were willing to move on. Sup, my guy, the gatekeeper to the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think White had good coverage in preseason. He plays with a very high pad level, whereas Bond plays lower and faster and has good understanding in zone coverage. I'm just talking from what we've seen from the tape in previous years. Easy. Devin White's a really, really good coverage linebacker. He's got a lot of speed. And even in camp, I would disagree a little bit because he was locking down Saquon and some dudes coming out the backfield in coverage. Devin's fast. He's fast. He's sudden. I think he's very athletic. I think you may have a point that, he's another guy that he didn't play a ton of zone. Tampa Bay is not a huge zone team. They're more of a man concept. So could still be learning zone concepts to an extent. Sure. But I do think that when you're trying to man up on a running back and you got to carry him on a wheel route, yeah, you want Devin White doing that. Devin White was by far him and I would say BVS, Ben Van Sumer, are the two dudes I think that had the capability to do that at a very high level. Trot's very instinctive. I haven't seen him carry anyone yet in terms of like carrying a running back or anything yet in pass defense. Joe said, with teams using a lot more rotations beside the O-line and quarterback, being a starter is not definitive as it used to be. Yeah, it's true. What's up, Keisha? How you doing? Brian said, I think you haven't confused. Bond will be a hybrid off-ball linebacker. Huff will be the starter at edge. Yeah, I think they've already pretty much stated that Huff's the starter at edge. Vic has been non-committal about snap count. I don't know what that means yet. I mean, my expectation is he's probably going to play upwards of 700 snaps. I just think he has to, just because like the depth's not that great. Even if Nolan Smith turns out to be a pretty good player, I still think, you know what I mean? I still think you're going to see those guys up around 700 snaps. Because if not, then you're looking at Sweat's probably going to be up around 700 snaps, which I don't think is ideal for Sweat just because of the knee issues. Personally, Brian, I think that's, I think if you can keep Sweat around 500-600 snaps, you take 100 snaps off of him, then I think that's when you get that crazy type of production from Sweat, to where Sweat can be really effective. But I do think that there's a point of no return with Josh Sweat with the knee, to where you start getting that starts to rear its head a little bit on him. He's already beat the odds, man. They said this guy would never play as long as he has. So shout out to Josh Sweat, because he definitely shut a lot of people up with that narrative. A young man, the Eagles were smart with the 4th round pick there, but I do wonder about taking snaps off of Josh Sweat more than Huff. I do think Huff's got to be the guy that takes the 700 plus snaps, because if it's not him, I think you get into some pretty questionable territory. The real said, hopefully Fangio can turn Mitchell into another Patrick Surtain. I mean, Patrick Surtain's a heck of a player, man. I like Mitchell. I think Quinyon's a good player. I wonder if he's going to hang on the boundary permanently. The real, to be honest, I see him more with the fluidity he plays with in his hips, the instincts. I think once Slade moves out, you move him in there. I think he's a field corner. I just think that's the guy you want, man. That's the guy you want to be able to move vertically and laterally. I just think he's got that kind of ability. I think he can really play well in space. I think Kaylee Ringo makes sense on the boundary. Kaylee's not a great, he's not the most fluid in the hips, but he's super fast in a straight line, super strong, super big. I think the dude's got great arm reach. I think he can be disruptive on the boundary. I think Ringo's that guy for the future, could be that, depending on how they see Cooper DeJean. I know it's a little problematic to spend like a top 40-ish pick on a nickel corner. That's not really been the Eagles' MO, but maybe they just see Cooper as like, Vic's scheme is different. It's a little different, and nickel corner is definitely one of those positions that's really important to the defense. But they might see him maybe as like some kind of an X factor. And while they may not do that with most guys, maybe something specific to him, but I do watch Coop, because Coop could technically become a boundary corner over the time. He could become a strong safety, I think, or he could stay in the nickel. I think he's got the versatility to do that. And he also played a lot, to be fair, the young man played a lot of field. He played a lot as a field corner in the Iowa's defense. Now, I will say this. While Cooper DeJean is not the most fluid in the hips, very smart. He's very smart in the angles. There was one play I was talking about where someone was running like a whip route, right? And they caught DeJean for a second, and he really had a hard time resetting and getting his hips to transfer, right? But what he did is, instead of trying to come over top of the receiver, he just caught under him, just took a perfect angle and got to the ball. Like, he does heads up things like that. So, got to let it play out a little bit, to be honest. But me personally, I would like to see, in an idealized world, you got Quinyon next year playing that field role. You got Coop playing inside as the nickel. And then you got like a guy like, Kaylee Ringo as your boundary. Because I think that at that point, you got a really, really gifted secondary, athletically gifted, smart, instinctual. I think people forget how young Kaylee Ringo is and just how impressive that young man has been. He's an impressive young man, but he's young. He's young. And I think he got held to a standard last year that was a little unfair, because he got cooked in the preseason. Ringo did last year. He got cooked big time in the preseason last year. I thought he really afforded himself quite well this year. I thought he showed growth. I thought he showed a lot of maturity. Am I saying that he's there and like, this is a guy you plug him in and you're getting Pro Bowl caliber play? Of course not. But I do think that he's showing you signs of like, hey man, this guy might work out. We might have made a really smart pick by trading back up into the 4th round in 23 and getting him. So yeah, I like him. What's up, Eagles Talk from Delco? What do you think about Booker being the backup nose tackle rumor that's going around? He's played it prior. He's little. He's little, man. 33 and a quarter inch in the arm reach to begin with. The young man's only like barely over 300 pounds, I think. Now, I will say this. These weights aren't official, and a lot of them are absolute nonsense. So I don't know that he's 6'3", 301. He could technically be 6'3", 310 by now. To be fair, Delco, you can't really trust these things that much. He's 25 years old. He's one of the only guys on our roster outside of Milton Williams that's sub 80-inch wingspan, and he's the backup nose. I don't personally love it, if I'm being real, Delco. But it depends. Like, we're assuming that if he comes in as the nose, the assumption I'm making here is if he came in as a nose tackle, he would play heads up over the center the way that we play Jordan Davis, to where they might play more of a tilt. They might play a tilt with stunt, right? That old Pittsburgh Steelers, that old 70s steel curtain style. That's how they played a tilted nose. I would assume you'd have to do something similar with Thomas Booker, because he's just not a traditional nose. I just feel like he would just get removed from plays too much. KSF said, I'm really on what Fangio said during his press conference. I want to see how good the defense is. It will dictate how far the Eagles really can go, as well as what we need by the trade deadline. Yeah, the trade deadline is going to be interesting, especially at like pass rushers, like what I'm kind of watching. I don't think it's a guarantee they're going to make a move at the trade deadline for a pass rusher, but that's the area I could see them where they're like, Also, what happened to Caden Stearns? I would have thought the Eagles would have at least kept him until next season. I think the injury is a little bit more severe than maybe they anticipated, but I wouldn't rule him coming back, KSF. I really wouldn't rule him being brought back. I think they know no team's going to probably sign him in this state that he's in right now. So I think maybe they feel a little secure in doing that, especially now the team's already filled out their rosters. So maybe they feel secure in teams not doing that. So that might be one of those things where he comes back a little bit later. Although, to be fair, I think if you really like a player, you should probably have him rehabbing in your building, and they got to be on part of the team to do that. Joe said, Buddy Ryan always said winning in September and October is nice, but the teams winning in November, December are the teams that will go deep in the playoffs. That's true. White and a fifth for Reddick might as well. Look, I don't hate bringing back Reddick. Reddick had a clutch gene to him. That man knew when to turn it on. He had that very much a clutch gene when it came to the pass rush. I don't know if they would do it. I don't know if they would actually do it, though, Wealthy Mind. What position group are you the most confident in? A group you're worried about. In a group I'm worried about? Position group I'm the most confident in? Um, I'd say it's a split between corner and wide receiver. I think the skill positions we got way better. I think I'm pretty confident in both of those groups. I think both of those groups got guys that are going to really, they're going to be household names. Some, obviously Devontae and AJ already are. I'm least confident in. I'd say the depth in some of the answers at defensive line right now. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that it won't overachieve. I'm not saying it won't be good. I'm saying I don't know, right? And we're talking about being worried about it, Dante. I just don't know what it is yet. You know what I mean? Like we got some concerns about who's going to back up nose. We got some concerns about the pass rush. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think this game against Green Bay, who has kind of a lackluster offensive line, I think this is a chance for the defensive line to put a lot of people's worries to rest. And it's weird, Dante, because I would have said before the start of free agency and everything, I would have probably said linebacker, but I actually feel pretty confident in linebacker. I actually think we got some guys that can play. Now, I don't think we're like a top 5, top 10 group at linebacker, but I think we're squarely in the middle of the pack. Even if Dean plays well, I wouldn't count out White. Dean is one injury away from being another bust. He's one injury away from being in some serious concern territory. A lot of questions will be answered in game 1 concerning offense and defensive units. We also show a clear picture how both coordinators call the game. Why is Devin White injured more when than why? How never played in the preseason. Trot Jr. not ready yet. It's tough, man. It's tough as a linebacker to be ready week 1. I mean, look at Green Bay. They have Edgerrin Cooper on their team, and yet they're starting Kendricks. That dude was, God, he was terrible for us. Like, there are certain guys around the league who just they keep their job somehow, and I don't understand how. I really don't. But I mean, yeah, I think linebacker in particular is pretty hard to come into and play at a high level. I'm trying to look up their depth chart because they got some undersized linebackers in Green Bay. To be honest, I think they can be taken advantage of a little bit in terms of that. Sorry, I'm scrolling down now, guys. So I'm sorry, not Kendricks, Eric Wilson, the guy who was supposed to be great in coverage and was getting burnt and couldn't tackle to save his life in the run game. Isaiah McDuffie, Quay Walker, and Eric Wilson seem to be their starting 3. Interesting, guys. It's an interesting choice they're going with here. It's a very light linebacking core. But, I talked about the origins of that Miami 43 and the fact that, you use these lighter, shiftier players, and that's what they're doing. McDuffie's like 227. Let's see, what's Wilson? Wilson should be around the same size. So Eric Wilson's around 230, and then Quay Walker. So yeah, Quay Walker is Quay Walker's bigger. Quay Walker's like 240. If he's truly 240, then he's around Devin White's size. But outside of that, they got some lighter guys there. What's up, Daz? Something fishy about the White injury? I don't know, man. They are practicing, guys. So, it could have happened in practice. Like, especially if you're dealing with an ankle. It's pretty easy to turn an ankle, guys. I don't know. I don't think it does you any good if you're trying to trade a guy if you're saying that he's injured. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it helps you trade him. What's up, Vince? I think BVS is even more athletic than White. Actually, he might be the most athletic linebacker in the league, if not top 3 at worst. Remember when I did the video when I was talking about it's so funny because people thought like I was saying like, oh, Jalix Hunt's going to be a better, a better pick than Peyton Wilson. I'm like, it's not what I was saying in the video. I was explaining to you why the Eagles did not take the chance on Peyton Wilson, but took it on Jalix Hunt. I didn't say who was going to be better at any point in that video. Um, but one of the things I brought up in that video is that if you were a Peyton Wilson fan in Philadelphia, you thought Peyton Wilson, that athleticism, the instincts he played with, while BVS is improving on the instinct side, like, he is, he's not a guy that's played as many snaps at linebacker as Peyton Wilson. With that said, athletically, I mean, BVS was jumping out of the gym, guys. I mean, this dude is an incredible athlete. Yeah, I agree, Wealthy Mind. 17 million, they're going to play him. I think he's the guy that, like, you have to figure it out. He's got to be a 700 snap guy. You have to figure it out somehow. What's up, Javon? How many snaps do I think DeJean gets week one? It's a good question. um, he might be if he's active, and I don't know that he will be, guys. I do think there's a possibility he's not active for this game, but it depends. Obviously, if Isaiah Rodgers is injured, then I would probably assume Isaiah Rodgers will be the inactive, and DeJean is going to be active. Kaylee Ringo could be one of the guys that uses an inactive as well. I say that, DeJean can be a pretty big, significant contributor on special teams. So I tend to think that, like, maybe he is active just because even if he's not playing physical snaps on your defense, he can be a pretty key contributor on the special teams early on. I think unless something goes wrong, Javon, if he's getting more than 5 or 6 snaps in this game without it being like we just crushed Green Bay and we're just playing the backups for the last couple series of the game, I would say 5 or 6 at most, assuming, obviously, if we're killing Green Bay, then, that's going to easily push him over 10 snaps a game if he's playing the last 2 series. But, I don't think that he's going to be like a key contributor early yet. I think they're still trying to work him in. I still think he's trying to learn the defense. I think he's going to be a guy. I think he's going to be one of the guys here, but it might take a couple weeks to get familiar with everything. We got a few guys like that, right, Javon, where it's a little difficult to assess them. So, like, I was doing my prop bets. Guys, if you don't know right now, most of these betting apps are giving you like $250 to use, guys, for placing a $10 bet. And on top of that, they'll give you 3 weeks. I know, hang on, which one did I just use, guys? FanDuel will give you 3 weeks free of NFL Sunday Pass from YouTube TV. So you can get the first 3 weeks of the season for free. If you guys didn't know that, FanDuel will give you like $200 for bets if you make a $5 or $10 bet, and then they'll give you 3 weeks of NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube TV. But yeah, like when I was trying to make my prop bets and stuff, Javon, I was kind of like, man, like Jahan, I don't know how many snaps he's going to play. I don't know what role he's going to play week one. I have a sneaky feeling that the guys we don't think about, the Jahan Dotsons, the Grant Calcaterras, the Kenny Gainwells. I got a feeling one of those dudes are going to score. I went with Kenny Gainwell on my prop bets. Yeah, I try to look for where the value is, guys. Like, I'm not trying to be right about every pick. I'm trying to hit on one of those picks to get a lot of money. You know what I mean? Especially on their dime. Oh, my bad. My bad, Vincent. I didn't even read it. I thought I read it, and then I realized, no, I didn't. Coach, remember you broke down the competition at tackle between 22 versus 23. You also pointed out why Reddick and Sweat production was down last year as reasoning why. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think that there's so many facets to why you can have a drop in production. I think one of the things could just be the way teams are blocking you up. If teams are expending more energy in 6-7 man protections, it's probably going to, you're not getting as many one-on-ones across the board, right? So now you got to get creative, or you got to bring pressure. You got to do things to get those sacks. It may not be the performance of the player. They might actually have really high win percentages and things like that, but the sacks aren't there, right? That's one thing that can impact you, right? If you have if you fail to get pushed from the interior D line, right? Javon Hargrave, not a great run defender, but man, that dude could really get a pass rush on. You got Javon Hargrave. You had, that same year you had Fletcher Cox had a really crazy good year. When it went and got Ndamukong Suh showed that he could still get a pass rush home. I mean, yeah, if your interior D line isn't giving you the same push that it gave you the year prior, it can dip you on the outside as well. So, like, yeah, it could be a multifactorial reasons for it, Vincent. Like, I think that's what you're getting to. Like, yeah, it can be many reasons why that happens to you. Richie said, any concerns about possible miscues with Hurts and Dotson in the first month? You're kind of getting to what I was talking about just a few seconds ago, Richie. Is Dotson just serving as a decoy until they get more in sync? Miscues lead to stall drives and turnovers. Possible. It's possible, Richie. I mean, how much offense are we expecting? Like, I mean, if he's just running wide open, I think Hurts is going to get him the ball. I mean, if they're spotting something is inept in Green Bay's defense and Jahan's just running free, I think they're going to probably adjust to getting the football. But I don't know how much offense they're going to go into this in the game plan planning around Jahan Dotson. Does that make sense? Like, and you can only plan for so many guys. You're going to plan for Devontae. You're going to plan for AJ. You're probably, Saquon's going to get some planning. Probably Dallas will get something built in for him, especially red zone packages, something like that. But yeah. Easy said reports suggest that Howie's one of the GMs that saw Cooper as an outside cornerback. It's possible. It's possible, Easy. Like I said, he could pretty much play every alignment in the secondary. So I don't know what to think here. Like I think Ringo would make a really good boundary corner, but I don't know what their plans are long term. So I'm trying to like be cautious with the way I walk it out there. If Mitchell has any weakness, the NFL will figure it out sooner rather than later. Yeah, Mr. Sandman, it's true. If he has none, they will exploit a different mismatch. I think that's why it helps to have like the talent we have at corner, right? It makes it tougher. Like, I don't think Kaylee Ringo is flawless, but I do think he's athletically gifted. And I think he's a guy that, can make it difficult on you as well. Darius Slay, as long as his legs stick, he's going to be good. Joe said, as fans, we need to have some patience for the first 4 games. They're a very young team. If they start to gel as a team, they will be a dangerous team. It's going to take a little time. Yeah, I agree with that, Joe. I agree that it's probably not going to be clicking on all cylinders early. Miami Dolphins head coach McDaniels was hired in the same coaching cycle as Nick Sirianni. He got extended to 2028. Nick has 1 more games. Will he get an extension too, maybe even before the season? Richie, that's an excellent question. I don't know that I have the answer to it. I know that the owner seems to really like Nick. But at the same time, I don't know how much longer our owner is going to be here. I don't think just because he cashed out some of his shares that means, it doesn't mean he's selling he's not going to sell the team. I mean, Julian's going to take the team over. But I mean, he did liquidate some of his assets within the team. So I'm wondering how much of the road is left, how much runway is left with, the transition from Jeffrey to Julian Laurie. I don't know, guys. That part I really don't know yet. James, what's good, buddy? How you doing, man? It's all good. Don't worry about it. Am I wrong? Outside of Jordan Davis, D lacks a run defender? No, we got some guys that can defend the run. Outside of 5-man fronts, Dante, I think you may have a point. When we play like 52 and things like that, like I think we're pretty good, at basically shutting down the run. I do worry a little bit when we're in those 4-man fronts about stopping the run. And mind you, when you're in a 4-man front, you're probably not playing 9-man spacing. You might be playing 8-man spacing. Most of the time, you probably are. I don't think we're going to play a lot of 7-man spacing just because we don't 2-gap a lot. With that said, when you're in that 4-man front, even if you got good run defenders, you're still going to give up 3 or 4 yards. It's going to happen. Like Milton Williams is a really good run defender. Moro Jama is a really good run defender. Jalen Carter is a really good run defender. Jordan Davis, I think, is the key to it all. But yeah, I think we got good run defenders. But yeah, I do wonder sometimes because our guys get displaced sometimes. We'll see. We'll see, Dante. Their ability to you don't got to win every down in the run game, Dante, but their ability to keep things 3 yards or less on 4-man fronts is going to be pivotal. Driscoll is back. White is out. Coach Gorilla. Yeah. Not the news I expected to hear today. I kind of figured Driscoll was going to be back when I heard Miami cut him. I mean, it just made sense. But yeah, that one caught me off guard as well. Would you consider our linebacker group a top 15? I think it's in that area, Keisha. I think we're in the middle of the pack. I think we're somewhere in the middle of the pack. Um, I don't think it's a top 10 unit. I don't think it's a top 5 unit, but I do think that it's serviceable. I think it's a way better unit than we had last year. Dante Carter and Milton are also good against the run. Pay attention to how teams were sliding protection towards Carter in his rookie season. When will fans know the starters for week 1? Who is the kick returner? Am I getting Andy Reid, Greg Ward vibes? Remember that disaster? Yeah, Green Bay, the fumble. I remember that. I had just got back from the service, Richie. Yeah, that was the first year I ever got Sunday ticket as well. That was back when it was only on satellite. You had to get it like add a satellite dish. Direct TV. You don't remember that, guys? I can take a look real quick. I think they got the depth chart up. I mean, the media makes a depth chart, so there's that. So I don't know that it's a definitive thing, but I can take a look at what they put in the depth chart. All right, let's see. Punt returners, Britton Covey. Isaiah Rodgers is listed as the second guy there. And then kick return, they have Isaiah Rodgers and Kenneth Gainwell listed. I heard they had somebody else taking snaps back here too this week in practice. I don't remember who it was. Let me go to depth chart and take a look. It was somebody that was fielding. Oh, you know what? It was Jahan Dotson was fielding some stuff too. So I think because Isaiah Rodgers they're dealing with, we don't know if he's going to be active for this game. I think they had Jahan Dotson taking the backup reps at punt returner, if I'm not mistaken. I could be lying there, guys. Check me, because that's literally like I'm like kind of recalling something being said there. I would check that, man. Mr. Salmon said Clint Hurt coached Puna Ford in Seattle. Puna is a 5'11" defensive tackle, and he's really good. Puna Ford, I think, was the dude that lifted Isaac Seumalo back in 2019, lifted him up off the ground. Any chance Cooper DeJean plays as a linebacker in pass-heavy defenses? I mean, he's going to play a quasi role like that, Richie, in nickel. As he comes in as a nickel, like they have these quasi roles for these guys, where he's going to play that kind of like some systems they call it stars, some it's a dollar position. It just depends on the, how they align them, what they call them. Georgia calls them dollar. It depends, but like he's going to have some. He'll have some box roles, some box support roles. Was completely overreacting in my mind. Which coordinator has more pressure to impress Eagle fans early? I think Vic's going to be giving some leadway just because of who he is. And the fact that like Vic will throw you under the bus firmly. He'll tell you who's not performing. I think Kellen Moore has less, runway. So I think Kellen's going to do just fine, but I think there's more pressure there. Steve, overall, do you believe that the Eagles will play better than last year? I do, Joe. I really do think they will. Even at 10-1, they were not playing consistent. I'm hoping that they will be a more consistent team. Yeah, I think, winning a couple games against some playoff teams, but also putting up some pretty big points against low quality teams. Like, being able to win those games definitively that we should win definitively. I think would give people a little bit of a confidence boost. Should the Eagles have kept Alex Singleton at linebacker? He seems to be doing very well in Denver. Richie, I don't remember the contract, but if we're just, contracts not being in consideration, because I don't know what his contract was in Denver, but I mean, if you're just talking about the player, I think Alex Singleton turned into be a pretty good player. Are you going live before or after the game or without LB and Philly Mike this year? I got to talk to Mike. I don't know if they want to do Battle Birds and everything. We'll see. I'm probably going to go live a few times this year during the games. So, I think I'm going to be live Friday, guys, to be honest. I probably will be live on Friday's game. Richie, they should have kept a lot of linebackers. I don't understand how he doesn't see the problem with his defense. Leave a like and subscribe. Appreciate you guys. Do I think that we lose now Devin White is out? No, I don't think Devin White moves the needle that much. Not saying Devin White wouldn't have been a good player to have week 1, but I don't think he moves the needle like you're going to lose just because he's out. Gate Carter was the one getting double teamed. Reddick and Sweat got many one-on-ones. Really no excuse for them. Yeah, I remember Carter finished, I think, top 5 in double team rate. But you got to keep in mind, double teaming center and guard doesn't really impact what you do with your tackles. And you're not going to have a lot of teams on 3rd and long that are going to block one-on-one versus Reddick and those guys. Few teams might try it. You're still going to chip. You're going to do things like that. Obviously, 6-man protection is normally done with, most of the time it's done with the running back. So it's just really like who gets through. He's just picking up and scanning who gets through. Hang on, guys. I'm trying to take a look. Man, it just, boy, they did not like to release some information. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm trying to take a look through here. All right, team plays PFR double team percentage. If I can get it to work, it won't filter. Well, that's crap. So I'm looking at the exact numbers. So Hassan Reddick had a 16% double team rate last season. Bryce Huff had 15%. So it's a 1% difference there. That's not a huge difference. Josh Sweat, 16%. Same. I want to say he was top 5, Jalen Carter. Yeah, so Jalen Carter was definitely. Double team rate was 59% for Jalen Carter. Now, I don't think he's top 5 now that I'm looking at it. Let's see. Chris Jones had the highest double team rate, it looks like, out of defensive. So Chris Jones and Kobe Turner were tied for first. 72% double team rate. Let me see, guys. 71% for Dexter Lawrence, so he would have been third. Did anyone else have 71% up here? Nope. Sorry, guys. Give me a minute. I'm scanning through to try to get accurate numbers for you guys. Quinton Williams was fourth with 70%. All right. After Quinton Williams, we have DeForest Buckner, 66%, was fifth. Tied with Jonathan Allen from Washington, tied fifth with 66%. I'm going through, guys. I'm going through. Give me a minute. 63%, Aaron Donald would have been like seventh. Let me see. Sheldon Rankin would have been 62%. So tied for seventh would have been Aaron Donald, 63%. Christian Barmore, 63%. All right, so that gives you up to 8. So we're looking at 9. All right. Do we got a 62% that we did? Yeah. Sheldon Rankins from Houston would have been 9th with a 62% double team rate. Leonard Williams would have been 10th. Seattle with a 61% double team rate. And USA from Dallas was 11th with 60% double team rate. Was there anyone else? Malik Collins from Houston was tied with him, 60% double team rate. So let's see. And then 13th overall would have been Jalen Carter with a 59% double team rate. Now, what I will say is, looking at the numbers, I was just going through the numbers for you and looking there. Going through the numbers and looking at it, I do think if you looked primarily at the second half versus the first half, I do think you would get different numbers there, because I think that Jalen Carter got double teamed more during the second half of the season. I think a lot of teams expended a lot of energy early on in the season double teaming Jordan Davis, and they're still going to double team Jordan Davis more so often on rundowns. You know, Jalen Carter, they'll do it here and there, but they're going to definitely look to try to move the big guy out of there on rundowns. So I think that does kind of, like that 59% is a little misleading, because, definitely on pass rush downs, they're going to give protection towards Jalen Carter on those pass rush downs. How concerned are you about this defense with Devin White being out? You think LaFleur is going to expose the middle of the field? No, because Vic plays more middle field close, Cameron. He plays more cover 3, cover 6, and cover 9 concepts. So cover 6 still can have the middle field open a little bit, just because you're really bringing a guy more so towards the flats there. You're bringing them down in there. But, I mean, when you're looking at 3 and 9 and they're rotating down, they normally do bring more down into the box. I mean, we'll see, Cameron. I mean, we'll see. I'm more so concerned about if you're getting in a situation where you're manning up, Cameron, with Devin White, and you wanted him to carry a running back downfield. Josh Jacobs, which Josh Jacobs is not Aaron Jones receiving, but he can catch the ball. Then I think you lost a little bit with Devin White being out, but yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like moving the needle in terms of like who my pick would be for the game in terms of winning. Man, I hope Vic Fangio doesn't go soft on Love. We'll see. I'm devastated. I'm crying right now. We're gonna lose. Uh, I'm not any of those things. I don't think we're gonna lose, guys. I think you guys might be overvaluing Devin White just a little bit, guys. We're definitely going to miss him carrying running backs out of the backfield. I do think he was good at doing that, but they did prep in terms of preparing the defense for the play calls. They had those guys splitting the green dot. We'll see, guys. The NFL not promoting this Brazil game like they do in Europe. Players arrive and leave within 3-day span. Is this going to be a disaster experience in Brazil? I am concerned about synthetic turf. I don't know, Richie. I don't know what's going on there. Thoughts on White being out? It is what it is, guys. I mean, I don't think Devin White was the greatest in run support. I think you actually gained in run defense. But I do think that you're missing something in terms of his ability to cover backs out of the backfield. Gabe Beck, why do you think our inability to win hinged on Devin White? Yeah, it's being a little dramatic. I agree. White happened to get an injury right before the game. Rumors of White being traded. The Eagles will be getting Reddick back. You heard it here first, Wealthy Mind. We'll see. I mean, look, Wealthy Mind, if we got Reddick back, I'd be pretty psyched about that. But I don't know. I don't think that, the bridge was burned between Reddick and the front office, but I definitely still think there was probably some hurt feelings there. McDaniels brings more value from a schematic and play calling standpoint in comparison to Nick, though. White happened to get an injury right before the game time. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we read that one. Oh, I see. This Gabe is a Cowboy troll. Milton Williams and Carter are good against the run. It's the outside zone runs that might be a slight concern in a 34 front. Eagles defense for the past few years has had issues with defending over the middle, man. Not the same guys, though, Cameron. It's different coordinator. It's different players in there. It's a different set of circumstances this time. Oh, yes, Cameron. Cameron, you're wrong here, brother. That O-line is not good. I promise you they're not good. Devin White being injured means the season is over. Yeah, I promise you that Green Bay line is not good, Cameron. It's not good at all. They're not a very good run blocking team, and they are very overrated in pass protection. To be honest with you, the scheme and Jordan Love bails them out of a lot. That's not a very good line we're playing. There's no excuse why this defensive line should not be pretty successful in this game. Keisha said that's definitely glad to hear because Howie used to not value linebackers. Jeffrey said, hey, coach, just signed in. Most pods talk some crap, but your videos talking about Fangio's D plus all the measurables and our drafted D backs was very informative and interesting. Hey, man, I appreciate it, Jeffrey. Exactly, Mr. Sandman. Fangio really leans on his slot cornerback to defend the run. Exactly. That's why I think Cooper DeJean's a really good fit there. I prefer not to get Quinyon Mitchell banged up in the trenches. He's tough, but he's not a big guy. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what they're going to do, Mr. Sandman. I mean, I don't know how they would play that. If Isaiah Rodgers is a no-go, I don't know that he is, guys. Don't take that as me saying he's a no-go. I really don't know if he is or isn't. But I would be curious if that wouldn't bring Avonte Maddox down to play the slot and then Quinyon just to stick outside. But yeah. Dotson. Do you think Vic Fangio out schemes Matt LaFleur or keeps him honest? I think, Cameron, we got to expect that they're going to get points. This is a good offense. Like the Green Bay has a really good offense. Josh Jacobs is a really good player. I don't think they have like star players per se. I mean, Josh Jacobs has been kind of quasi in that area before. Romeo Doubs, I think, is a really good red zone player. I think he's a little underrated in the red zone. One of the prop bets I made there, and I know he's got a contusion on his hand, but Still, I'm still, I'm pretty high on him. But one of the things, like Romeo Dubs had 22 targets in the red zone last year and caught 8 touchdowns in the red zone. So, I mean, like Romeo Dubs and those guys, Christian Watson, pretty good vertical threat guy, good height, good speed. I like the other guy they drafted too, Jaden Reed, kind of a surprise guy that appeared for them. I think they're a good offense. I think Jordan Love's a good quarterback. And I do think that Matt LaFleur is a good offensive-minded coach. I think that offensive line is not good. I think that is definitely their Achilles heel. I think that the offensive line is definitely getting bailed out by the talent around it. And the fact that they got a really good play caller. And he's, I think you're going to see either Boots semi rolls or you're going to see a sped up game. Unless the Eagles, if we can't get a pass rush, then that just, we know we're in trouble here. But I think if we start to get a pass rush, you'll see LaFleur adjust quickly. You'll see like those semi boots. You'll see like probably quicker, maybe a little bit more play action or zone read to slow us down a little bit. I think you'll see that kind of thing get worked in there because Jordan Love can hurt you that way too. Vincent said, what do you think the value of Milton Williams, and do you see him being re-signed, or do you think Howie is waiting to get Slay or Bradbury off the books before he resigns one of the defensive line players? Potentially. I'd have to look at the future. I got to look at future contracts and just kind of take a look at what the value and the money would be there. Because, they can't pay everybody. Unfortunately, it's just one of the downsides to it. But, I mean, I would like to have Milton back. I think he's a really good rotational player. We're going to have to draft a linebacker again next year. We need to draft a linebacker every year, but don't. Yeah, I mean, as long as they keep, still keep trying, that's what they should do. They should just genuinely keep trying every year or two. You take a stab at a linebacker. You'll eventually get something right there. I mean, Vic said DeJean isn't ready in the presser. He may not be active. Possibly. He might not be active, but I do think that his ability to, number one, Isaiah Rodgers potentially being injured could change that right away. But also, I just think that Cooper DeJean is a way better special teams player than Kelly Ringer's a gunner. He's not better than Kelly Ringo. Although Coop can gun, he can be a gunner for you. I meant to say Eli Ricks. He's a better special teams player than Eli Ricks is. With that said, when he says he's not ready, I don't know if he means he's not ready in terms of doesn't understand the defense well enough yet or not ready physically. That's the thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like that word can have some different meanings there. So, yeah, I mean, if he's not ready physically, then yeah, I agree with you. He's probably not going to be active. Kenny Clark versus Jurgens and Becton. Is Kenny Clark an elite defensive tackle? He's pretty dang good, Richie. Kenny Clark is a really good player. Yeah, Kenny Clark is kind of the dude along their D line. He's a good player. They got some edge rushers that I don't know if they're in the greatest scheme fit for themselves, but I mean, they've had production in years past. It's just I don't know how well they're going to fit a 43 front, to be quite honest, their edges. But Kenny Clark is a really good player. He's one of the guys that in interior D line, like, yeah, I think he's pretty good. He's probably one of the players that people forgot over time for Green Bay, but I think he's one of those guys that probably have a resurgence. Sorry, guys. Hafley's scheme is it's very similar to Schwartz, where he wants to attack with that D line. So I think you're going to see a little bit of an uptick there. I think DeJean's going to be good, though. He needs more grass time. Philly might be drunk by halftime and starting a speech. I don't do shots and drinks, guys. I don't do all that stuff. He will be that vocal leader when adversity hits during the game. Right now, I mean, they've already talked about Jordan Davis has kind of been one of the guys along the D line, at least, who's stepped up. You still got, Brandon Graham's still on this football team, guys. CJ Gardner-Johnson's on this football team. Darius Slay's on this team. They got guys that are leaders. I think CJ Gardner-Johnson's a very outspoken guy, to be quite honest. I think Brandon Graham's a very outspoken guy. Jordan Davis appears to be a very outspoken guy. So, I mean, they do have guys in that role. Sweaty's a veteran dude. He's played, he's got some time in the league now. So, I mean, I think they got those dudes. Defensively, I think they have those dudes. Even Francis, from what I've heard, I've heard is that Quinyon's a bit like he's not a quiet dude either. They said Quinyon Mitchell's quite vocal. Steve, do you think the Eagles' approach to linebackers ever since Jim Johnson preferred elite D linemen and elite cornerbacks and didn't look at the linebacker position as vital as those? I think that they had a point to an extent that linebackers with the modern NFL was getting devalued, but I think we've reached a point now to where it's went too far one way. Now I think your best bet is when you have guys that are truly special and you're drafting, or you can get that guy, like you can't afford a $25 million pass rusher, but what you can get is a stud at linebacker for 12, 13 million. You know what I mean, Joe? Like, I think you've kind of reached that point to where you got to reassess roster construction and be careful. But I still think that, yeah, I mean, I think corner is the hardest position to play in the NFL, to be quite honest. I think it requires the most athleticism. And I think that honestly, an edge rusher is one of the most, tackle, center, edge rusher, quarterback. I think those are like some of the most important positions in the NFL. To be more logical, Vic did say the best player will be on the field regardless of experience. I take back what I said about the credibility part. Laugh out loud. Yeah, I trust Vic will do the right thing. Green Bay rookie defensive coordinator from college. I need 40 points in San Paulo. Kenny Clark is good. He's not like top 5 defensive tackle, but he's like fringe top 10 defensive tackle, if not back of the top 10 defensive tackle. Good pass rusher, solid run defender. Yeah, I actually really hang on, man. Give me 1 second. I'm about to delete this dude, bro. Hang on. Man, you going too far with crap, bro. Like, come on, man. You out here accusing people of things they didn't do, man. Like, that's funny. Like, that's not cool, bro. Sorry, I just had to remove that comment, bro. But yeah, I agree with you, Cameron. I think he's definitely he's in that top 10 category. He's in that area. I'd say in top. You can probably make an argument somewhere between 8, 12-ish, somewhere in that area. He's around there. Do you think not playing our starters in the preseason will hurt versus the Packers? I mean, maybe for a possession or two, 504. I mean, they're professionals. These guys have played for a long time. I mean, it could definitely affect you in your first possession or two. Potentially could affect you with conditioning if you're not working hard enough in practice. I mean, possibly, but I think they'll get it together. I'm afraid if Dean is the replacement for White for this first game as a starter, he will again get hurt and be out for some time. If that happens, will the Eagles trade Dean? Kind of hard to trade him if he's injured, though. That'd be the only difficulty to that. I mean, in the offseason, Keisha, I mean, if someone had interest in Dean, they might possibly consider moving on if he got injured again. But I don't know. I mean, he kind of had a freak accident last year with a foot injury, and he had injuries in college, but he played through them. Like, they never really took him off the field in college. He always played kind of through them. I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, I don't want to, I don't want to go too heavy on one side or the other. Like, oh, he's going to be healthy. Like, it's the NFL. You never know. I don't want to also guarantee an injury because, injury is the one thing you can't really predict, unfortunately. Can't double everyone. I need Jordan Davis to play with his big boy pants and act like a crazy dog. Cam Jurgens will shut a lot of people up this season. Everyone outside acting like the line will fall apart now Kelsey is gone. They weren't paying attention to Cam and how he was playing. Yeah, Cam's a good player. Mean mother humpers. Just win, baby, by 50 or 1. I don't care. Just playing well is the most important to me. We will learn more in a close game compared to a blowout. I want his meat and ticked off. We will know within the first couple of series. Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to cough in the mic. I just realized I turned my head towards the mic when I coughed. Yeah, Cam's going to be better than that. I think so, too. I think he's very athletic, Cameron. But I won't hate a blowout. White was not the starting linebacker. There seems to be some discussion around that. I don't know. The media put it out as he was, but the media doesn't really count. It's the Eagles media team that puts out the depth chart. He was number 1 on their depth chart they released. But again, we found out that Quinyon Mitchell from Vic is going to be playing pretty much every down as long as he's healthy. And that was not reflected in the media's depth chart. You know what I mean? So it'll be what it'll be. You know what I mean? It's, judge the film afterwards. That's all I look at. Judge the tape afterwards. What does Jordan Love do that can cause the D to struggle? Give me 1 second, Dante. His ability to elude pressure is top notch. He keeps his eyes down the field too. He can beat you on the run. He can do that to you, but he keeps his eyes downfield and he does a good job of that. He's a guy that I think gives you some ability to where if you're being overly aggressive, he can slow you down through RPOs and stuff like that in terms of shooting off the edge. Your D line is what I'm referring to with that, guys. And to be honest with you, when you look at his numbers inside the red zone, you look at his numbers versus pressure and blitzes, like, oh, this young man was a really good player, guys. I can't hate on him, man, because he was a really good player. Jordan Love was third overall in touchdowns within the red zone from opponents 20 to their 1. All right, so Jordan Love was 66 of 114, 57.9% completion rate, 443 yards, 29 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a 95.1 rating for a guy that was in a rookie year and had a rough going early on. I think he played quite well, actually, in the red zone. And then, do I still have the pressure numbers up, guys? Yeah, so here's 2023 splits versus the blitz. He was blitzed the most out of anyone in the league, 216 times. All right, and let me take a look at. All right, he was 129 of 202 versus the blitz. Okay, threw 12 touchdowns against 1 interception, 1,441 yards, had a 102.8 rating. And I didn't see a sack. No, there he is. He got sacked 13 times versus pressure. So, I mean, to compare that to Jalen Hurts, who's also a really good player, and I think Jalen can hurt you as well. Jalen was blitzed the third most in the league, 190 times. He was 105 of 172, which was 61%. 1,181 yards, 6 touchdowns against 9 interceptions last year versus pressure. And they had a 71.4 rating. Now, I don't think this is indicative of what Jalen, I think this could be fool's gold a little bit when it comes to Jalen. Jalen's better than this versus pressure. We just schematically, we had some things wrong, but Jordan Love's showing you when you got a guy that's talented, you got a guy that's got some ability to him, and you got a good scheme behind him. He's showing you what can happen there, guys. I mean, guy is pretty good in the red zone, pretty good versus pressure. I think he's elusive. I think he can definitely get you in the RPO game if they really want to build their offense like that. Like, I think he's a good player, guys. I'm not going to lie. I think Jordan Love's actually a really good player. This is why how we got Huff, one of the best third down pass rushers last year to get the pressure off Carter. We need one of JD, Milton, or Jama to take that next step. Agree with you on that part. Easy. We're in agreement there, bro. They're not playing on turf. Isn't it some kind of a synthetic mix, I thought, Barrett, or something like that? I don't know. I don't live in Brazil, to be fair, Barrett, but I heard somebody say it was some kind of synthetic blend or something. They use the same turf as the Eagles and Packers. I'm glad to hear you guys say they're playing on grass. Brazil has same time zone as the East Coast. No need to worry about jet lag. Football teams need more time to acclimate when they change a few time zones. Interesting how Anais, Bradbury, and White got injured at very convenient times. Laugh out loud. It's true. True. I don't know. Like Bradbury, I don't see how it pays them any, I don't know how it does them any good for him to be injured, but maybe they just could have a point easy. They were looking for somebody, couldn't find anyone to trade, and we're like, hey, man, you're going to have to take a fake injury. I don't know. Yeah, you still have to pay Reddick. I do wonder if he would come back off the price a little bit, but you got a point, Antonio. He's got to get paid, and it's not going to be cheap. He's going to get paid more. If he comes back here, he's going to want more than Huff. Carter gets 2 sacks. What's up, Dewad? How you doing, buddy? High-scoring game? I think so, Rodney. I think it'll be a pretty high-scoring game. No, the Jets have to pay Reddick. He's gone, and that's it. Paying Reddick isn't going to be that hard because clearly nobody else is willing to give him what he wants. We'll see. He could still sit out. Do you think Carter is our catalyst to go into the Super Bowl? I think he's a pretty big part of it, Trey. Wide receiver Reed is pretty good for Green Bay. Yeah, they got a few guys in there. Dobbs is a really good player. Christian Watson's a really good speed guy, give you some vertical threat there. Vic said Q is not coming off the field. Tell me he's playing all over. Gate, do you know Philly Film Room, one of the smartest Eagles creators, together with you? His linebacker video is what convinced me of how good Bond has been. I don't know. I might. I have to look up who is Philly Film Room. Let me. I'd have to look it up easy. There's a chance. I've met so many different content creators. Easy. It's hard to remember everyone's like handle on YouTube. But I mean, there's a possibility that we've met either through Twitter or through YouTube. Oh, here comes our favorite person, Darlene. Q gonna play slot and nickel and move outside in base. If you can get the ball out of Love's hand in less than 3 seconds, it does not matter. The O-line strength does it. Exactly, Richie. People think that Green Bay's line is good. They haven't paid attention. It's not good. It's not a very good O-line, but you got a guy in Love who's he can make you right. And even if you listen to Lane Johnson and these guys, when Lane was on that incredible run where he wasn't allowing a sack, I mean, he outright stated it's kind of easy when you got a guy like Jalen Hurts who, even when you make a mistake, can kind of bail you out of it. If we paid Reddick, it's a great possibility that AJ and Smitty don't get extended, along with a few others. Team who overpay one or two players destroy their teams. You can't overpay all of them. Again, I'm trying to get off the topic. Did you watch any college games in week one? Yeah. I watched the dismantling of Clemson. I watched the NC State and Western Carolina game. I saw the Colorado game and North Dakota State. I didn't watch a ton of them though, Cameron. I like to go back and watch them kind of like in quarters. Once I get a feel for like who's performing, I want to see, once I can kind of get some grading and some ideas behind their play, then I want to go back and kind of watch it and see. That's funny, Joe. The new school of coaching staffs have finally taken over. Andy Reid is a dinosaur, last of the Mohegans. Yeah, that's true. Hell no. Do not put Cooper or Quinyon as a linebacker. Those guys are going to get killed by a guard or tackle pulling to their side. It's a hybrid role at Healthy Mind. They're not it's not a traditional off ball stack. They're not stacked. They're coming down and they play and it's called a dollar roll. Some teams call it a star roll. Darlene, sometimes I'm not even going to read your shit because I can't even read what you type sometimes. It just like you've got to learn punctuation, dude. Like, not a stickler for those type of things, but like seriously, man, it's getting to the point where like we can't even you're not making like a coherent point. We don't really care if you're trolling, but like you got to make a coherent point. I know Slade doesn't like to tackle, but I hope all that has changed coming into this year. It feels good to be a Gen Z adult who's never lived to see Dallas get past the division round. I'm going to need them to pay Dak that guac. That's funny. Okay, so who are these great O linemen Green Bay is rolling out? 1 week too early, but I am predicting a Nolan Smith Jr. coming up party versus the Falcons. Beware Cousins, Nolan coming for you. What's up, LJ? How you doing, bro? Dean beating out White for that starting spot is the best news I've gotten all day. Dean won the starting job over White. Okay, I see you're not giving any insight. There's clearly no football conversation going on here. Green Bay's line is their offense's weakness. Exactly. Is Darlene still hate viewing? I have them blocked, so life is happier for me. Yeah, they are. I'm not gonna block them. I don't think what they've done deserves to be blocked, but I just, I don't care if someone's trying to troll, but I mean, like, I can't even understand what they're saying. It's not a coherent sentence there. I'm thinking that Darlene has already started hitting the bottle. Enjoy your Cowboys not having a loss until the weekend. Trolls are fun to play with. It's entertaining. Funny LJ. He's trying to don't let him goat you in. It's my older brother. He's trying to goat y'all in, bro. He knows damn right well that's a lie. He's trying to goat people into an argument. Yes, it's a mix. Yeah, I heard it was a mix. That's what I heard too. You know, deso fiber and grass mix. Jordan Love's arm strength reminds me of Justin Herbert, and he's elusive. Going to be tough. Don't don't encourage him, man. Don't encourage him. Don't encourage LJ. Darlene, Pro Football Focus is fake news. Do your own research. Yeah, name one player ranked that highly. Name one lineman. I can tell you their best lineman is Darlene. I mean, I'm just waiting for you to name one player you think is elite along that offensive line for Green Bay. Who's their elite player? Elkton Jenkins is their best player, but I'm going to tell you who you think is elite. What's up, Eagles and X's? Yo, it's Eagles Eric from Philly. Oh, yeah, I know Eric. Yeah, he's a good dude. Yeah, Eric's smart, man. Yeah, we've definitely talked before, Eric. yeah, Eric's a smart guy, guys. Yeah, absolutely. As I was saying, guys, there's so many like it's hard to keep up, guys. There's so many names. It's tough. Like everyone's, But yeah, I know Eagles, Eric. He's a smart guy, guys. Pickett should be the Cowboy starter. That's funny. You watch as much as possible. How many quarterbacks do you think will be active game one? Will the Eagles have Hurts, Pickett, and McKee all active? Potentially, Richie. They might use that rule where you can keep the third quarterback active. That gives them just an extra space to use. If we put DeJean or Mitchell at linebacker, then we should put Devontae Smith at center and Hurts as the kicker. I mean, Randall did kick one before KSF. Back in the day, Randall kicked one. Tone was getting on Darlene about the grammatical errors. Yeah, I'm not really a stickler for that stuff. It's just like I can't understand what they're even trying to say. Boston College smoked Florida State. Where did they get these players from? They must be recruited for real. What's up, Gate? I'm extremely optimistic about the team, even with the surprise injuries we just found out about. I believe we get the job done 31-21. Ben Van Sumeren will be the next Alex Singleton. Hey, man, I appreciate you, Joe. Appreciate you, buddy. Gate, are you worried about that the Packers will stress the Eagles tackling in the flats? I'm concerned about Slay and Rogers tackling their tight ends and Jacobs. I mean, yeah, Slay's already. Yeah, I mean, come on, Eric. I mean, Slay admitted he doesn't like to tackle, and I mean, Isaiah Rogers plays tough, but he is prone to miss tackles, and he's smaller. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's a legitimate concern. Now, I think the key here is going to be rallying to the football. You got to rally to the football and shut it down. That's why I liked Kelly Ringo at the boundary because I think Kelly Ringo really can play that short zone area. I think he can play that short zone really well. If the D line is in good condition, we can cause havoc all game. Just hope defensive end Kane can keep contained. My bad, my bad, man. My bad, man. All right, guys, I'm about to jump off of here. We've been going for a little over an hour and a half. Yeah, good point. Good point, Eagles, Eric. In base, why don't they try Ringo? It's a good point. I don't really have the answer for it. That's what I was saying earlier. I wonder if they would maybe kick Ringo out and then put Quinyon in, when they go in the nickel. And I think that would give you a little bit there. I think obviously when Coop is up to speed, Coop gives you a little bit of an ability to play down in the flats and to play down inside that what we call the short zone area. Yeah, I definitely think so. Oh, Patrick Stain got paid, huh? Makai Becton, wide receiver one. You think he's elite, Darlene? Zach Meyer. Okay, bro. All right. Well, good luck with that. Good luck with that. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all so much. And I will see y'all tomorrow, 10:05. All right, guys. Peace. I'm out of here.